Never seen a smile so big on my little old lady's face until I tell her I'm going fishing all weekend. Pack up all of my bacon, I make plans for 7:45, and I swing around, pick up my date for the weekend. Some reason she seems to please when I'm leaving. There's something I'm missing when I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing.
Yeah, baby.
Yes, sir. Holy smokes, we got a whole bunch here already. Wow. Oh, you guys are on the ball tonight. Manny's in the house. Jeremy's here. How you doing, Terry? Eve. Always nice to see you, buddy. Tony's in the house. Tony, you're going to want to pay attention to something that we'll be talking about very shortly, because I know you're into your giveaways. So stay tuned to that. Steve, how you doing, my friend? Richard Dunlop's here. Manny's on Facebook and YouTube. Buddy, you are a trooper, my friend. Trisha's in the house. How you doing, Trisha? Lloyd's here. Lloyd, we are going to be sort of featuring our Saskatchewan chapter, kind of, sort of. So stay tuned. You'll understand what I'm talking about in a sec. Mark Wolf, your prize went out this weekend, courtesy of Powell Castings. We got it delivered on the weekend, dude. So stay tuned for that. Thanks again for your support. And there's going to be a little video that's going to be coming up with your grandson, Ben. So stay tuned to that. Class, and always nice to see you, Bob Bizanet, buddy. You got the shoulders for that last name. It was great to meet you, finally meet you, and it's a good thing you got those big shoulders because you need it for that last name for your jerseys. Dave Robinson, CFN at the Sportsman Show in Toronto this weekend. I'd like to say we would have a booth, Dave, just with time. Moose is down in sunny Cuba. It's just it wasn't in the cards, unfortunately. It was just we couldn't we can't do them all, unfortunately. But I might likely head down there just to see you and anybody else who's at the show. So come by, say hi. I should be walking around somewhere. Jeremy's in the house. Corey, always nice to see you, dude, out on the West Coast. Pete LeDuc's in the house. Hello, mister. Gary Lee, nice to see you. Trevor Barnucz. Well, I'll tell you, you've been busy on the weekend. We got a video to prove that. We got Steve. Holy smokes, this is incredible. Anyway, let's get right to it because there is a lot to talk about. First and foremost, thanks to everyone who joined us and is joining us tonight. I'm going to make it worth your while with an announcement very shortly, so stay tuned to that. Big shout out and thank you to Yvonne last week. Great guest, fantastic guest in Aaron Wilson. We were honored to have the pair of them, and we look forward to seeing what Aaron comes up with in the future. She is a busy gal, much like Yvonne is. So busy, in fact, that Yvonne will be returning on the 27th. So not next week, but the week after. So a big shout out to Yvonne. Thanks so much for bringing Aaron to our community, allowing us to get to know Aaron. And as I said, our ladies' night events are fantastic. We truly look forward to it in a huge, huge way. So again, thank you for that. Also, of course, our friends at the Saskatchewan Sportfish Research Group, namely Dr. Chris Summers and, of course, Julie Stewart and Caitlin McCallum. They joined us to tell us a little bit about the tagging that they did at our Canarsie CFN Ice Jam that happened the first weekend of March. We got a bunch of fish tagged. We helped with some research, and I'll tell you that that's just awesome. I love the fact that we are a part of such great things like that. Also for tonight, we'll just go over, we've got Jim, we've got Lawrence, and we got, of course, Jason Barnucz. Jim will be joining us, obviously, to talk about many things, which will also include his recent visit to the Quinte Sportsman boat and RV show. He'll give us a recap of what the show was like, some of the things that some of the takeaways, some of the interesting things he saw, some of the interesting folks he met. As I said, this is one of your smaller, up close and personal type venues. As I said, from everybody that seemed to go, it was a great show. It seemed like a lot of CFNers were at this as well. So, as I said, chime in, tell us what your takeaways were from the show. But needless to say, Jim will be joining us for that. Lawrence is going to be joining us. We're going to be talking about a couple things. I think he's going to lead off with something in regards to an email that he received that is very interesting. I'm not going to say anything more. Namely because I don't know anything more about it. So I'm going to learn right along with you folks. But let's just say if Lawrence is interested in this email, we should be too. It has something to do with DFO, but stay tuned to that. And at the end of the segment, of course, he'll have bullet news as always. So he'll bring us up to date with everything we need to know. And we're going to be talking about this fish. It is an unofficial Ontario ice fishing lake trout record. It was caught up in Red Lake, and at the end of the show, we're gonna ask, how old do you think that thing is? Because I do know none of us are experts in that field, but I know Jason Barnucz is pretty darn close. So we're gonna ask Lawrence, we're gonna ask Jay, but congratulations to Sam who caught this just unbelievable fish. What an unbelievable fish to catch through the ice. And if he does make the ice fishing record, congrats to you on that. Quite an accomplishment. And of course, Jason, as I mentioned, will be with us, and he's going to be talking about his weekend adventure with his two boys in tow. Trevor and of course, the other gent's name. Oh, it's terrible of me. But anyway, he's going to talk about their incredible fishing adventure, walking the shores in the snow. What are the tips that they can offer for folks who are looking to do this kind of fishing? Because this kind of fishing is now available. We have the weather to prove it. So as I said, rainbows are coming up the rivers, walleye obviously until they close. So there's a lot of opportunities, and Jay's going to share a bunch of that with us. So stay tuned. They got some great segments. Now announcements to get to. Unfortunately, I was approached by Walter, who is basically in charge of our Saskatchewan chapter, Walter Heck, and he came to me about a situation that I think is perfect for our CFN Serena Slush Fund. Unfortunately, Steve McKinnon, or otherwise known on Facebook, Stephen McKinnon. So if you're going to look up his profile, please do. He had a bit of a health scare. And when I say a bit of a health scare, I'm just glad he's still with us. He collapsed one morning getting out of bed, and to make a long story short, they found some tumors on his spine. Now, they've since removed it. He did send me a picture of the scar. I'm not going to share that because some of us are having dinner. Some of us, like myself, haven't had dinner, and I don't want to ruin it for you. So I'm not gonna share that. But let's just say he's in a lot of pain, and unfortunately, he's going to have to take some time off work. But the bills keep coming in, right? At the end of the day, unfortunately, tumors, cancer, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't discriminate, and it doesn't care if you live check to check. It certainly doesn't care if you need to go to work. When it decides to pop up, it decides to pop up, and it's never convenient. Let's just say it's never convenient, and it never makes your life any easier. So what we'd like to do for Stephen on behalf of CFN is make his life a little easier. And I've got a challenge for you folks. This is the challenge that I want everybody to listen up and participate in. CFN is willing to match. It's going to be a match challenge. We are going to match dollar for dollar all the money that is donated to Stephen. As I said, his bills are not gigantic, but until he's able to get under his feet and get his feet under him, I should say, and get back to work. He's living with his parents right now who are looking after him, and God bless them for doing that. But his bills, as I said, are still coming in. So we are going to match dollar for dollar all the money that is donated up to and including $250. So I'd love to be able to say that CFN raised $500, 250 of it will be on behalf of CFN. But if you are looking to donate $10, $5, $100, whatever you want to do, it's totally up to you guys. If you want to help a fellow CFNer who is a true CFNer and has been with our community and is a huge part of our CFN Saskatchewan chapter, please. This is Walter's email. Walter Huck has organized this. He's been spearheading it and is willing to take all the e-transfers that folks are interested in donating. And as I said, CFN will match dollar for dollar just to help the guy out till he gets his feet under him and is able to get back to work and pay his own bills. I think it's a huge relief for someone that, lives check to check and doesn't know where that next payment is going to come from. But as I said, we don't want the collectors to be beating down his door, and we'd like him to be able to just recover. At the end of the day, he's got a huge wound on the back of his neck, and certain things he has to learn to do again. And you know what? Folks in that kind of situation shouldn't have to worry about money. They should be focused more on their rehab and what have you. So as I said, if you want to donate, we'd love it for you. We'd thank you very, very much. As I said, that is the email. Please contact me if you want further information, or Walter, or even Stephen. As I said, he was very hesitant to allow us to do this. I don't want to say I forced him, but we kind of pushed it, and I wanted to bring it to the community because I know this community. I love this community, and I know what you guys can do. The power of this community just never ceases to amaze me. So, again, if you are interested, please donate. It's to a very worthy cause, to say the absolute least. Okay. On that note, I also wanted to mention that Tourney Tuesday is going to be happening tomorrow. This is our wrap-up show. So join Mike and I tomorrow. We are giving away the last of the prizes. And again, I can't thank these folks enough for all of their support and their generous donations. As I said, a good number of the prizes have already been mailed out. I want to thank Powell Castings for helping with the shipping on that. Brad, you were a huge help, and I can't thank you enough. Not to mention, of course, all the prizes that were donated as well. And of course, tomorrow, the big one, the big Camp McIntosh weekend 2-night 3-day stay giveaway is going to be raffled off. Well, not raffled, but we're going to pick the winner tomorrow. Tourney Tuesday. Stay tuned to that. If you put in an entry, you are eligible. It's just as easy as that. And of course, we can't thank the wonderful folks over at Camp McIntosh enough for their generous donation. And speaking of which, of course, we have our CFN 5th annual retreat at Horwood Lake Lodge. Beds it's becoming packed. We'd love to see a few more people join us. I know Warren and Doris would as well. So as I said, if you're interested, and this is going to be in August 14th to the 19th, please reach out to Warren and Doris. Get your butt in a bed, get it booked, make sure you're there. You don't want to miss out. It's always a fantastic, stay, man. I'm telling you, it's the highlight of my summer. Absolutely love Horwood. And what is equally a highlight is, of course, the trip to Camp McIntosh, which is the 2nd annual OFC Nation retreat. It is going to be happening September 22nd to the 24th. Please reach out to Tracy and Andre, as they are also starting to book up. Love to see you there. If you love your smallie fishing or your toothy critter fishing, this is the place for you. We spoke at great length about it at both shows that we've attended so far. We will do so again at the Peterborough show at CanCast, which of course is coming up at the beginning of next month. So as I said, if you are interested, please reach out to Andre and Tracy and get your butt booked in a bed. Also, to all you muskie lovers, this is happening on the 25th, Muskie Odyssey. I know there's a bunch of folks that have reached out to me, Jamie Sebastian, Lisa Goodyear, that wanted me to pump this, and I do so absolutely willingly. There's some great folks over in the muskie community, and Muskies Canada does some fantastic work. And anytime we can promote people that are making a difference to our fishery, I'm there for you. And to the folks over at Muskie Can. I hope you have a great show. We will again mention it next week as leading up to, I think we have one more week to do that. But anyway, if we don't, needless to say, Muskie Odyssey's happening on the 25th. Be there. Don't be square. Just be there. Now, one thing else that I wanted to mention is a new idea that I'd love all of you that come, and you do so every week, but I also want to reward you for that. So here's what we're going to do going forward. And you don't have to register, but if you want to be like Tony. Tony loves to win stuff. Tony, don't you, Szanowski? You love winning stuff, right? Well, here's the way we're going to do it. Sorry, Tony. It's Stephen McKinnon. Stephen McKinnon. McKinnon. Stephen McKinnon. That's the gentleman's name. Tony, you love winning stuff. Well, you know what, Manny? You love winning stuff. Tony Montana. That's hilarious. Anyway, we're going to do a CFN Live giveaway. This was an idea that came to me courtesy of Brad Powell from Powell Castings. We are going to ask you to register. We're going to make a post. We're going to pin it to the top of our Facebook page, Canadian Fishing Network Facebook page. Basically, how it's going to work is we will have a prize each week, CFN Live. We are going to have a wheel. And at some given time during the live, whether it be at the end, the middle, what have you, we're going to pick a name. And you will have till the end of the show to chime in with the phrase that pays. If you do so, you win the prize. If you don't, we will pick another name until someone does chime in. And or perhaps maybe we don't give it away. We save it till next week. But needless to say, the only way you can win is by tuning in, because by the end of the live, she done and your chance is gone. So we're going to try and get a few more of you here so that we can give some really cool stuff away. As I said, Powell Castings is spearheading this. It was a great idea, Brad, and I thank you for it, dude. And I think we're going to make a lot of people happy, not to mention Jay, Jim, and Lawrence, but of course, our CFN community. And who doesn't love our CFN community? Last but not least, this is a busy week. So we've got Tourney Tuesday tomorrow, and special guest, Cameron Tate is going to be coming back. And this is going to be a new basically it's going to be a segment of his that's from a new vantage point. And I saw the video, and as soon as I saw the video, I'm like, I think that we could put a new spin on this, Cameron. So what we're going to do is we're going to play this video.
Here we are in northwestern Ontario, and we just caught this beautiful lake trout, and good friend Gord Pizer, he's getting a shore lunch ready for us. Okay, the easiest thing that you can do is a little bit of prep beforehand before you come out to do a shore lunch. This is all about convenience, and look at we're out on the ice and we're doing some cooking. So I really like to use like evaporated milk. This way you don't have to worry about milk or eggs or anything else. We're going to take the belly part of this one here, and we're just going to season this one here. This is a sriracha seasoning, and I love things that are nice and spicy and flavorful.
Does he ever? And so do we. And what we're going to do is we're going to play that video in its entirety. If there's a question that pops up, we'll pause it. If Cameron wants to explain something a little bit further, we're going to pause it, and then we're going to continue on. Or perhaps we're just going to play the whole video and then chime in at the end. Cameron and I are still working out the finer details, but needless to say, this is going to be a really cool vantage point where we're able to play the video and interact with the audience at the same time. So this Thursday, 8 o'clock, stay tuned. It's going to be quite the recipe. You had me at jalapeno, Cameron. You had me at jalapeno. So anyway, needless to say, this Thursday, 8 o'clock, be there. Don't be square, and make sure you come hungry, my friends. Jim's up next, right after a word from our sponsor. Boom shakalaka, as you would say, Jim.
with a capital B.
How you been, buddy? Did you get some sleep
Good.
last night?
Got a few hours, not nowhere near enough.
Yeah. Well, you've been busy, man. I'll tell you, the show life, it can drain you. And how many years you been doing it now, Jim?
Well, I've been with Shimano for 40 years, so it's more. So a lot of people listening here, I was doing this before they were born.
Right. Like, think about that. For I mean, obviously, some of us that are on right now, we've got a few years behind us. But at the end of the day, think about that. Jim's been doing this, and some of our following wasn't even born yet. That's wild. Incredible, Jim. Well, thank you for all your dedication.
Every day.
And you know what? For folks that take the time to come up, shake your hand, give you a high five, give you a pat on the bum, we appreciate it, and it goes a long way, dude.
Tell me more.
Well, it's a family show. Maybe after we end the live broadcast, we can talk about that.
I looked around for my shirt and I grabbed the one I took off when I came in the door last night that I used at shows.
That's awesome.
All good,
dude. Looks fresh and clean. So tell us a little bit about the Quinty show. What was some of the takeaways? Some of the interesting things.
Well, it was cold down there.
Yeah.
One of the doors at the front broke. The ones that automatically open and close. The outside one broke. So every time we got a lineup going in the door or people, the doors would be open and the wind was blowing. It would just blow right in from the northwest. It was just wild. But no, it's I'm shocked at how big that is and how many people come to it. Like, it's really, really cool to see the amount of people and the families, all that. It's just so well attended. There's they have great prizes that they do for door prizes and stuff and other things like that. And there's just a sea of. I never realized. I was sitting in the office the other day and I looked. They have a map of the show on the wall, and there's like 8 buildings and arenas, and there's the arena there where the Belleville Senators play, and there's the old arena. There's big buildings. There's the giant swimming pool they had where they were trying fly casting. Everything, just so much going on. And I think Jeff was saying it's 23 years he's done it now.
Wow.
So it's a long time. And on Saturday they had the best crowd they ever had. So once again, Saturday rings forward as being the big day. And
right.
Like I say, people haven't been at these. In fact, the last show we did before COVID shut it all down was at that show, and it was so funny because there was somebody who shall remain nameless was standing there saying, "I can't believe they're going to cancel a sportsman show because of a cold." And literally, if we had only knew what was coming,
Yeah.
It was, we didn't realize how it was going to affect the world, not just, the Belleville show.
And I'd like to say, Jim, from what I saw, at the Ottawa show and the Spring Fishing and Boat Show, people appreciate the fact that, they missed out for 2 years. They missed out. They missed that interaction with people and crowds. And, again, I saw it at the Ottawa show, saw it at the Spring Fishing show. You mentioned it this past weekend on the Saturday at the Quinty show, that people came out.
Yeah.
A lot of people were worried that maybe these shows would die after COVID, and clearly they have not.
No, they didn't. It was really funny too because I had a little bit of a take on this that I talked with Tammy about. When once it got that we had missed 2 full years of shows, like 2 full years of everything, basically, and I said to her one day, I said, "So realistically, what have I got left at this?
Mm-hmm.
Like 6 years?" 8 years? I mean, how long do you live? 10 years from now, I'll be 80. Like, are you going to live, you're past, where you're supposed to go and whatever, the average. And I said, I feel like I just got robbed for 2 years of doing what I love.
Yeah.
Because I didn't get to do it. You spend so much time sitting at home and that. So it's, I don't know. It's, I'm really looking forward to going to Toronto this weekend. It's better for me in Toronto too because the only responsibilities I have are doing a seminar each day at 2:00.
Right.
So I don't have to worry about putting in 10-hour days the way my mobility is.
Right.
It's really good. And then of course after that starts the greatest 4 or 5 days of my life, my fishing life. So it's that's going to be a cool thing. I had people. Where is it? I had people come up to me and give me cards on the weekend, thanking me for everything I've done for sport fishing and whatever. It's pretty. It was like kind of. It's touching, eh? Like I'm back at the hotel. I've got 3 cards. I'm opening them up. There's no money in them. Oh, I'm just kidding. I'm opening up cards and I'm reading the beautiful things that people have to say. And it's just really, really cool that a person would take the time to go buy a thank you card.
Buddy, listen, it's the least that we could do. And for anybody who doesn't know, Jim has been inducted in the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame, the first Canadian ever to be inducted into the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. And I can't emphasize it enough, nor can anybody else that did take the time to write a card, what you've done for our industry. And it's interesting. I was talking to a young lad who mentioned the weights and the walleye. And I said, I hate even talking about it because, for folks like Bob Azumi, Big Jim McLaughlin, Jason Lawrence, the list goes on and on. What you guys have done for our industry, Gord Pizer, something like that, it hurt me. It made me angry because you've done your whole life to build this industry up, and then these clowns like this can smear it in your face with that kind of behavior and activity.
Yeah, you just sort of look by all that, eh? But like I think I may have said this before too. I'm not sure, but the thing about this that really made me feel good was this is about all the other things I've done and the things for kids and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's not about all the tournaments I won or all the fish I caught.
100%.
And that to me is, I have my memories from the tournaments and things. All that, you can never take that away from me. It's entrenched in there, and every once in a while I'll just be driving on the 401 and something will come back from a tournament into my mind that was a really good experience,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll catching a fish with 5 minutes left because I persevered right to the very end when it was 95 degrees and I was dying at the front of the boat, or whatever. And little things like that. But the fact that to get mentioned for that, it's really, really cool. I thought it was awesome the other day. I got a little quick note from Ricky Clun on one of the posts.
No way.
Thank me for what I've done, and he's one of the people in the beginning that I looked up to. I still do every day, and when he won that big tournament a couple of years ago in Florida there, and he said, don't ever tell an old person that their best days are behind them.
Great advice. I
Very,
mean,
very true. And then it was funny because then about 2 years after that, he won another one. So
wow. I got to ask you, Jim, I know you've been working very hard on it. Your acceptance speech, is it almost done?
Let me show you my acceptance speech. Here it is in its entirety so far.
Wow.
And I've made my mind up that I'm not going to write a speech and stick to it like I told you I was going to do.
Well, I just want to know, how are you going to get that on your hand? Like, that seems like a little bit more. I'm just kidding.
I'm just going to make a little card with like 5 or 6 points on it.
Nice.
And then what it is, and I'll have another sheet that I can hold up to say to John with 5 minutes or less written on it for a joke at the beginning. Could be a kick out of that.
That's awesome.
I had 3 people from the thing that I've had contact with.
Yeah.
And they all used this 5-minute thing. It's like, I feel like it's at the Academy Awards or something where you're talking and they just start playing the music and hey, you're out of here.
I was just going to ask you, like, hopefully it isn't like the Academy Awards where they get the music playing and it becomes uncomfortable and awkward. I feel horrible for the winners at that awards show. It seems like they get a minute and then the music starts playing. But anyway, a question here from Cameron Tate.
Uh-oh.
What's Jim's favorite fish to eat?
Sunfish.
And would crappie be close to, or?
Yeah, crappies, but I'm talking like bluegills and pumpkin seeds.
Yeah.
That's really good to eat. Hey, and something else that's really good to eat too. I've only done it once, and is rock bass.
It's funny you say that. I grew up on rock bass. Our lake was full of them.
Yep.
And
I was in a little lake up here past. Yeah, I was in a little lake up here past Westport one day. It's probably like 35 minutes from where I'm sitting.
Mm-hmm.
And we got we were trying to catch walleyes, and we were fishing in about 23, 25 feet of water. And first fish I catch is like a 10-inch rock bass.
Wow.
Whoa, look at that sucker. I'd never seen one that big. It actually had a belly on it, whatever. And looked like it'd been hanging out with you and me. But so I throw it back in and I throw the jig back down, and a few minutes after, thunk, I get another one. My buddy sets the hook the same time. We got two more, and they're like 9 inches, like they're fair size. And I looked at him and I said, "Have you ever eaten these?" He goes, "Oh yeah, I come here to eat them. That's what I come here to catch besides the walleyes." And I said, "Oh really?" He goes, "Yeah." So I kept about 8, and brought them home and ate them. I've only done it once, but man, there was nothing wrong with them. They were absolutely just incredible. I remember cooking them up when we had when Rocky just had fish crisps came out.
Yeah.
And the thing that I thought was so cool about fish crisps was that it was the first thing that we had on the market, the first one ever. It's like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
That had it repelled grease when it cooked it. So you put it on a napkin, and there was no grease.
Yeah.
Like they weren't the best. Yeah, they weren't the best flavors. They're not all of the really good flavors that you have now in the coatings.
Right.
But there was no choice. It was like plain and barbecue or something. And the barbecue tasted like stale barbecue chips. But
well, yes, it did revolutionize fish fries, because at the end of the day,
yeah.
a lot of what we use, cornmeal especially, as Cameron can attest, it would draw the oil in. Whereas this new product that Rocky came out with repelled the oil and actually provided a healthier alternative when it came to eating a fish fry.
Yeah, because I was shocked the first time I saw it used.
Yeah,
like when they put the fish on the paper towels, and there was next to nothing.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%. So Cameron's gonna do a sunfish crappie recipe for the next issue of Just Fishing.
Done deal, buddy.
Yeah, I have to say I would have gone down the same road with the rock bass myself. But as I said, as I've told other people this story, what got me interested in walleye was, my father didn't get excited about much, but, out fishing with him, I was going to reel in what I thought was just another rock bass, because I was really good at catching rock bass with a bobber and a worm. And as soon as it came to the boat, my father stood up, his eyes just went like saucers. And he said, "Oh, don't lose that fish. That's a pickerel," as we used to call it back then. That's a pickerel. And I didn't know what it was. I just saw my old man who almost tipped the boat and fell out, because he was so excited. After that, I had a passion for walleye, just because, as I said, I've never seen the old man get that excited about anything. So that's cool. Yeah. So you've got the Toronto Sportsman Show coming up. Anything that you'd like to share, or some tidbits of info that would be exclusive for us tonight here on live?
That's all it's going to be about.
Square bills and round bills.
Crankbaits, and more crankbaits. Classic Canadian cranking. It
now,
just works.
We talk about search baits, Jim, and spy baits and this and that. For a search bait, is the crankbait your go-to?
Oh, it should be everybody's. That or a rattle bait.
Right.
It should be, because it gets down where the fish are. Spinner baits are awesome too, but people tend to fish spinner baits way too shallow when they get into a little bit of deeper water. They're still reeling it back 2 feet under the surface. Well, if the fish are 8 feet away, there's not as much chance of them coming to get it. Now, if you're in shallow water, it's a different thing, because you can't get them that far away. So it's like anything else. They're tools. All the lures are tools, and you have to learn to use them in the different areas. And when you do, you become much more successful. Right. And that's like, you hear me rant all the time about going out and doing the same thing.
100%.
It'd be like, I always joke about my two favorite tools for working with wood are a chainsaw and a sledgehammer. Well, all I'm going to be able to make is firewood if I keep using those. But if you branch out and you get some other tools, you can get some pretty nice looking stuff with you, if you learn to use them. But there's so many options out there for anglers today. And you hear me talk about it all the time about how good this stuff is today, the quality.
Yeah.
I was just bending the hooks down on one of these lures to be sure nobody can get snagged on it. And I always bend 2 down all the way with the points folded. And so I run my hand if they can't catch anything. And then I cut the third one off to hook it on the line tie or onto the reel or something, just a place to hold it. And it was all I could do with the side cutters, with the good ocean side cutters, to cut the hooks. In the olden days, the metal was so bad that it would sort of squish down and you just bend it back and forth and it would come off.
That's awesome.
Like the hooks, like the metal was garbage. And even the hooks down. There's so many new hooks out there. You see these other new ones that are out now, the ones we talked about in the fall, BKK. I mean, one of the things I always do when I get new stuff and hooks, is try to cut them with the side cutters.
Mm-hmm.
Either I've gotten awful weak or the hooks have gotten a lot stronger because it was all I could do to get the side cutters to cut them.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm not the only one that says we're so glad you didn't become a carpenter and you stayed as an angler.
Yeah, I could have had a song if I were a carpenter.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, if I had $1 million. Speaking of the $1 million question, Manny has a question for you in regards to fishing. He's just wondering, what's your go-to lure when fishing is tough? I'm going to say that crankbaits is probably at the top of the list. Any others?
There's two ways to look at that. One is just to get really aggressive and cover a lot of water, hoping to find active fish. But covering water where if the fishing sucks, you don't want to be going to look for fish in new water because you already know the fish aren't active if you're not catching them on your spots.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, you saw a classic thing with me the day we went out. No, it wasn't you. It was Luke the week before when I floundered before I found that area that had those fish.
Yeah.
I had caught 2 fish in 2 hours and they both were this big.
Yeah.
And then I completely changed up and decided to go somewhere I hadn't been.
Mm-hmm.
Not the best thing to do, but I did it and it worked out great. But as a general rule of thumb, there's 2 things you can do. You can speed up and cover a lot of water looking for an active fish, or you can get out a jig and start fishing really slow. But see, one of the nice things about a crankbait is that once you get a crankbait down, you can fish it dead slow. Especially a real deep diver, like a true deep diver. Just put a little box together to bring to the show here. Like in a true deep diver, that's a jackal diggle.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the big ones. Once you reel that down a bit and it's down to the depth you want it at, you can reel it so slowly that it's barely moving. All you have to do is maintain the speed a little bit, and it'll stay down there. So the lure's not moving fast, but you can cover a lot of water. If you keep the boat moving toward the lure at the same time, you're covering the water with the boat, but the lure's coming back real slow. So you make long casts and you get it to come back. And it's just something that really, really works. So there's 2 ways to catch fish. You appeal to an aggressive feeding strike, or you just put something in front of them that's just so easy to catch that they can't resist it.
I got asked this, or I asked this, or heard somebody ask this question in regards to crankbaits when it comes to floating, sinking, and suspending. And the gentleman who answered the question is notable in our community, in our angling community. And he said, if I had only so much money to spend, I wouldn't worry about floating and I wouldn't worry about sinking. I would strictly get suspending.
Probably, because see, that's basically what I would be doing with the crankbait.
Yeah.
Once I get it down there, I'm just letting it maintain its depth. It's not going any, much deeper. It's not going much shallower. You feel it hit the bottom. You back off a little bit, lift the rod an inch, a couple of inches maybe, changes the whole angle. The lure isn't going to dive as much. If it's not hitting the bottom, you just put the rod tip down. In fact, Tammy was just doing the PowerPoint for me here before we went and had dinner. And that was one of the points that I had about how important the angle of your rod is when fishing a crankbait.
100%.
It can make all the difference in the world. And it's just another one of those little things that you have to go out there and use. David, those power dive minnows, they were a real deep diver.
And I have to say, I was saddened when they stopped making them. I know the blanks are still available somewhere, not readily available, but there is someone that is selling them either from China or on Alibaba or something. I got told, but 100%. That bill was like no other bill on any crankbait. And did it ever dive? No kidding.
Yeah, they've got. I mean, there's lots of companies have stuff that goes way deeper than that now.
Mm-hmm.
Like way deeper. The Heroes just brought a new one out, and if you look at it, the bill is actually bigger than the lure.
Is that right?
It's really cool. He showed me this like 3 years ago when the last time I visited his home.
Mm-hmm.
And he showed it to me, and just like that one that he was commissioned to do one for Daiwa there, the one that just came out there, the Bessie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have one of those in the garage that he gave to me, a prototype. I couldn't talk about it for 3 years.
Wow.
I wanted to tell people about it. It was so cool.
Wow.
You know, like you really just need to know about it. Basically, a spy bait for muskies.
That's awesome. Awesome.
That's something we talked about a lot on the weekend. You know, a lot of people wanted to talk about crappie fishing, and a lot of people were shocked when I told them. I said, well, you know, throw away your slip bobber, throw away your everything you have. Get a jackal eye prop, the smallest. They make the smallest eye prop that's out there, and you go fish for crappies with that, and you tell me what you think.
Right on.
I know guys that guide for crappies. That's all they throw. They
Wow.
literally do. They have bobbers in the boat. Very seldom will they ever get wet. Very seldom will they ever get wet. I mean, eye props are just something that crappies eat, and it seems to bring the big ones out too. You know, if there's 15, 16-inch fish to be caught, these ones eat it.
Well, listen, Jim, I'm glad that you saved some stuff for us here on Monday. All you do is just spit out a wealth of information to anybody who's lucky enough to be standing in close proximity. But you always come here Monday and we learn something, man. And
Well, there's a good chance I might not be able to be on next week. I got a bunch of things to do. I'll see, but I'll be getting ready to go for us to go away too. But I got to get a bunch of stuff done because we're working on the spring issue of the paper. But the Monday after that, I'll have something to show you.
Fan-friggin-tastic. We can't wait for that, Jim.
When I come back to Canada and they say, do you have anything to declare? I'll be holding that out the window.
That's awesome, buddy. Can't wait. All right, dude, you take care. Get some rest. Thanks so much for joining us, as always, dude. Lawrence Gunther will be up next right after this. Peace.
When it comes to Canadian food, we've got your back with flavors like lemon pepper, beer batter, campfire barbecue, lemon pepper dill, garlic butter and chives, and crispy Cajun. We've got a mix for every meal. Whether you're serving East Coast shrimp, West Coast salmon, succulent walleye, chicken wings, or veggies, we've got you covered. Coat your food in outdoor flavors. Available online or at these fine retailers.
Lawrence Gunther in the house.
Hi, buddy. How you doing?
Well, listen, fantastic. And I know you're on pins and needles. I know you can't wait to discuss this. But before you do, again, can't thank you enough. If anybody misses this broadcast, please go to Bluefish Canada, Bluefish Radio, and make sure you tune into the podcast, which is shared in its entirety there. So again, pumping our tires, pumping your tires. Needless to say, we can't pump them enough. But Lawrence, welcome, and thanks again for joining us here.
Oh, thanks for letting me record this too and get it out on Bluefish Radio. You know, it's a whole nother audience, and this is good information. We got to get it out to people. I mean, Big Jim and Jason. I mean, if I could record the whole thing, but they'd chop my head off. So, you know, look at what I got here, right? But
all right, dude, let's get to it. I know you want to spill the beans. There was an email that was sent to you, and you are going to divulge.
Yeah, so there, you know, I've been working closely on the West Coast with the Public Fishery Alliance out there. It's a group of anglers. It's a nonprofit organization. They're putting money into fish stocking. They're putting money into creating selective harvesting, river trap technology. That, you know, it's a modern weir type technology. And what they really want is to get a selective fishery going on the West Coast to counter a number of these closures, especially in the southern parts of the West Coast. There, you know, closures. There's been a lot of closures introduced to help, you know, save the southern resident killer whales, right? So they've closed this, they've closed that to make sure these whales have unfettered access to the salmon, no one nearby to get in their way of their hunting. But they're saying, look, there's some other areas we'd like to have some fishing. We've checked with your scientists. We've done our homework. We've talked to other researchers and scientists, and we believe we can do a selective fishing exercise here where we would only keep fish that were raised in hatcheries that are marked. They have the little fin snipped off, so you can tell they're hatchery fish. They're not the kind of fish you want to necessarily spawn going up the rivers and spawning. So it's almost a good thing to take them out of there. And they're getting some opposition, my friend. They're getting some opposition. And it caught them right off guard.
Okay, now I'm puzzled. I thought we were onto something with that, and you're saying there's folks that are against that. Is there a reason in your eyes that they would be against that, Lawrence?
Well, there's a few organizations, the David Suzuki Foundation, the Rain Coast Foundation, the Watershed Watch and Salmon Society. They've written a letter to the Department of Fisheries and Oceans and said, look, we need to be super precautious here and not open up more fishing when the salmon are in such peril. Opening up even a selective marked fishery for recreational anglers could put these fish at risk. And they make a number of accusations. They talk about 50% mortality for catch and release salmon caught on downriggers. They talk about, the fish in the Fraser River being targeted. They talk about putting the orcas or the killer whales at risk from the fishing activity. They make a number of points in their letter to the minister. And it just, the Public Fishery Alliance just said, look, enough is enough. You can't make up this stuff. You can't make up things that aren't true just because you don't like fishing, just because, and what they're saying, the Public Fishery Alliance is saying, you're just using this to raise money. You're just saying, here's a campaign, let's ban recreational fishing. Give us a donation and we'll make sure it happens. And that's the Public Fishery Alliance's theory. This is, Public Fishery Alliance is pro fishing, pro recreational. They understand that the fishing on the West Coast is a $10 billion contribution to the economic fabric of those coastal communities, right? And, when you're taking into consideration the guiding and the tourism and all of that, and what people spend to go fishing, they're just getting squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. And they're really, so they've written their own letter to the minister saying, look, these are accusations that are unfounded, and here's why. And they put their own bullets together. And we're going to put this in the next issue of the Bluefish News. So next Monday, you'll see this letter in its entirety. I'm going to get permission to put it in there. But trust me, it's worth a read. Educate yourself. Ally yourself with the Public Fishery Alliance. They need our support more than ever. I mean, we're talking 2-3 years now of fishing closures for recreational anglers. Another year, people will just start selling their boats, right? It's just, how long can you keep your boat on the trailer?
Well, and this is the thing, and there's some great comments here in the comments section that I'm going to get to in a second. But, at the end of the day, I thought, and I would think that there has to be a compromise when it comes to the BC fishery. I mean, I understand there's an insatiable need to want to close something down when you're super concerned about its longevity. I get that. I totally understand that argument. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of folks out there that would also argue that there are some runs that are still quite good. And earmarking a suggestion, an initiative that would allow folks to keep a fish that is hatchery raised, because you can pick that out with the fin clipping, would be a compromise. Now, as David says, you keep one fish, you're going to offend somebody. And you're right, David. You're probably 100% right. And it doesn't matter what fishery it is. Or who it is that keeps it. At the end of the day, if you keep a fish, yes, some folks will get offended. But at the end of the day, we have to. I don't know. Like, how do you shut down a fishery that depends that heavily on the income? And what are these charter captains going to do?
And it's no offense to the killer whales and the southern resident killer whales, but there's been solid science that show that there is ample Chinook in their hunting areas. They follow these whales around. They know exactly where they are all the time. So they know the waters that they don't go into, where they don't hunt. And these could be fished, right? Without causing these whales any trouble. You could put a bubble around these whales and you could alert people on a daily basis. Look, here comes the whales. Get out of the way. Don't fish here, in these areas. This is all very doable technology, and no one's pursuing this. I mean, the government, the DFO invested $1 million in a mobile fish clipping technology where they take, young hatchling salmon before they're released into the river and they snip the fins. And they have not yet put this technology to use. It's been just sitting there for 3 years now, sitting idle. Because, it means they're going to support a selective mark fishery. And right now, the politics and the environmental groups are saying, oh, save the salmon, no more fishing, cut the fishing out, save the whales, save the salmon. And the only way that's going to happen is if you put a pause on fishing. Well, the scientists, even the DFO scientists, said you don't need to put a pause on all sorts of fishing. It can be done sustainably. And to say that 50% of caught salmon die when they're released is not accurate at all. I mean, there's lots of science out there that shows that, to be very conservative, maybe 20% die, but that's only to be very conservative. The number is actually quite a bit lower than that. So, you're talking about small single barbless hooks on spoons being dragged behind trolling rigs. If the injury is very minor to the fish, these people know how to handle the fish. Are we going to ban catch and release fishing?
Well, it sounds like it. I mean, it sounds like it in BC anyway. I don't know. At the end of the day, I hate hearing fishing opportunities closed if it's for good science or it's in relation to good science. I'm all for it. I'm here to protect the fisheries of the future, and I'm sure all of us that are listening and participating tonight are in the same boat. If there's a certain species of fish that we shouldn't target because we're concerned about its longevity, absolutely. But to shut an entire fishery down for the sake of whales, it seems a little extreme to me. But again, speaking of extreme, you're right, David. That train wreck in Ohio did a lot more damage to fishing than what is proposed here with the catch and release. And I'll tell you, talk about sweeping that under the rug. That's probably a topic for another day for you and I, Lawrence. But
try to get to the bottom of that one, man. You can read a lot of articles, and it's not easy to figure out what went on there. Other than there was a big race to get that train track open again, and the train's moving, and they were working as expeditiously as possible, which is why they set all those chemicals on fire, because it was easier just to burn them off than it was to try to move them. Yeah. But that just caused a whole snowstorm of black toxic soot. It was
so great comments too, David. Yeah, absolutely. Fin clipping's a great idea, but how do you educate the general public on what fish to keep? I think what we need to do is spend as much money on rehabilitating these fisheries as we do on education. Mm-hmm. And as we have done a very good job, our fishing community, about explaining the do's and don'ts about catch and release and the importance of catch and release, we need to do the same out there in BC. So I think it can be done. It's not done overnight. It does take some time, but I think we can do it. And of course, I love this. Corey says, on the west coast of Canada, you need the broodstock program to put more salmon and steelhead back into the river. They use the wild salmon and wild steelhead string to keep that string of fish going. I have said this, and I know Lawrence would agree with this. We should truly have a hatchery on every major run that does exactly that. That it increases the chances of a hatch rate and a survival rate of a brood stock of fish. I personally think.
And they can do the DNA testing on the spot, so they know exactly what they're dealing with when they pull it into the boat and they check the DNA before they even terminate the fish's life. Right? They can say, "Oh no, this is one we're going to keep. We're going to milk the eggs of this one," and they can do this right on the spot. They don't even have to move the fish. So they can, it's amazing. They have the technology. It's just the willingness, right? We're putting money into all sorts of things, but there's no one putting any money, and they're almost afraid. They're almost afraid to come out and support recreational angling because they're afraid of the environmental groups ganging up on them and getting the public turned against them. And that's how they make their money. That's how they get their donations.
Scary. Very scary. Listen, I'm sure we could dive into this all night, but I know you've got some bullet points that you want to do. Well, and of course, I want to talk to you about this world, or potentially an unofficial world record lake trout caught through the ice. But we'll get to that after some education, some 411 from Lawrence Gunther.
So you want to talk about this giant lake trout first, or you want to leave it to the end?
Oh, we'll leave it till the end.
Okay. All right. Hang on. Oh, here's something interesting. So the government of Canada was part of a historic agreement to protect the fish in the international waters. So 150 nations signed an agreement after 10 years of negotiations to say, look, you can't just go out beyond the limits of the countries into international ocean water and go nuts. You can't just, fish all the fish you want, dump all the garbage in there you want, and just create havoc in these offshore areas. It's not necessarily deep water either, right? There's the Galapagos Islands and things like that where they're just going crazy. So we've got an agreement in place now, and this is really good news. And it's something we can celebrate for sure.
Well, it's going to be interesting because I don't know if Dave Helmer is watching this, but he usually chimes in and listens to our lives. But he's down in Mexico right now, and he said, Scotty, you need to come down here and tell these folks about catch and release, because there is no such thing in Mexico with those local fishermen when it comes to catch and release. Everything they catch goes in the boat. Everything they catch comes home with them. He's concerned, at the take that he sees on a daily basis. So if we are doing something worldwide to spread the need and information when it comes to protecting our resources, I'm all for it. Mm-hmm. And it's about friggin' time. That's awesome. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, educate, right? Taking anglers out, have them catch and release fish, big fish, you can make thousands of dollars doing that. If you catch that big fish and bring it home, you're going to make $10-20, right? So you got to teach them the economics of this and how it can work in your favor for sure. You were talking about people that don't have a lot of money. Trust me, I've been to Mexico and I've taken those little boats out, and and it's absolutely amazing how old and broken down these boats are, but they love them and they keep them going, and it's it's their only way to make life. There's for some people, right? So anyways, yeah.
Now, one question, and of course, David, I sort of touched on it with Mexico. I didn't necessarily want to go there, but it is a very valid question that you ask. Did Japan and China sign this agreement that you know of, Lawrence?
That's a good question. I'll have to check in on that. I can't imagine China getting in on it, but who knows, right? I'll look at the list and I'll get back to you next week on that.
Fantastic. All right, continue on.
Okay, here's something else. So the IGFA, International Game Fish Association, just opened an unlimited line class for junior anglers to get recognition of large fish, right? So now if you're under a certain age, you can now hold a world record. It's all the same rules apply, except they have to treat them well, they have to measure them properly, they have to catch them legally, and they have to return them alive for it to count as an IGFA junior record. That's fantastic, eh? Fantastic. Return them alive.
Man, this is some great news. Again, that's 2 in a row, Lawrence. You hit it out of the park.
Let's see if I can redeem myself and come up with some trifecta.
Are we going for the trifecta, or are we going down a rabbit hole?
I got to see what's next on my list here. Hang on. Oh, yeah. Here's something that's so great. 6 corporations in the west coast of Canada own 26% of all the fishing licenses. Yeah, I'm not talking, personal recreational fishing licenses, but the commercial licenses. You think about, all these commercial anglers that used to fish for salmon, one boat, one guy, maybe 2 guys on a boat, outriggers, downriggers, and they're out there catching and trying to fill their quota. Well, 26% of those licenses are owned by 6 people. 6 people, and all the giant commercial fishing boats are owned by 1 person. So there's a consolidation of the fishing industry that's been taking place on the commercial side on the West Coast that shouldn't have happened. You're taking the livelihoods away from people, and that's tragic. But there you go. Let's it'd be nice if that could be reversed and we could support local fishers, right? And instead of some international fishing organization, company.
We live in a capitalist society, right? And everybody should have the right and ability to obtain wealth and start a business. But I can assure you, with this one person, how open is that one person to another, cannery opening up, or perhaps another boat getting sent in and fishing for themselves? Because it's not necessarily that one person is the owner of this. It's the fact that one person isn't allowing anybody else to play as well. That's my biggest concern.
Yeah, and they're hiring people for minimum wage. It may be people who don't really care or don't understand. They just want a job, right? And it's maybe it's not minimum wage, but it's a job. It's not, people that don't necessarily have a stake in the long-term survival of the fishing. So they might be more willing to bend the rules, right, on behalf of their bosses, and catch and keep fish that they shouldn't be catching and keeping. So, yeah, it's when you're invested and you own the license and you want your children and then their children to, grandchildren carry on the business, you're going to be more likely to follow the rules.
Competition is a good thing. We have to understand that. I understand that there's some conflict that comes with that, but in this situation, we need competition because for the reasons you just mentioned and the fact that nobody else is allowed to play, it just doesn't seem right. And I know what you just said is alleged, bad behavior, but it's quite possible, and it's probably going on.
Yeah, well, we see it in the large scale agriculture too, right? It's you're not farmers working in those giant barns. They're people who need a job, and they don't have any background in farming quite often. They're just doing what they're told.
100%.
Hey, here's something else. Oh, okay. Hey, Fish Donkey. It's an angler's app, and they have a masters competition going on across North America. 34 species of fish are opened up. If you can catch 14 of these species, you probably will win the competition. But it's not just catching each of these species. They actually have to be a certain size, right? So it starts March 1st, goes to the end of November. And last year it was caught. It was won by someone with 10 species of these fish of a certain size. So they've added more species. So there's 34 in total now. They're saying if you can probably catch 14 of these that are the minimum size, you'll probably win the competition. And it's a cool thing. You can fish on your own. You all record it with your Fish Donkey app on your phone, and good luck to you guys.
So I have a little bit of background information in regards to that. And
cool.
My Consul, if you're listening, you'll appreciate it. You probably have a smirk on your face as well. So Fish Donkey approached CFN in regards to the CFN fish off. And we wanted to do something with Fish Talk. They approached us. We are loyal folks here at CFN, and we wanted to go with the first person to approach us when it came to an app, because we wanted to go down the road of an app. And Fish Donkey, we had our meeting, and I'll never forget this, and I know Mike won't either. When we explained the CFN fish off, and that it is a multi-species tournament that has no cap. There's no limit to the number of species that can be submitted, and how we went about the submissions, the videos. I'll never forget. I don't know who the organizer is or who owns the app. Literally dropped the phone and said, "How on earth do you control that?" And of course, I said, well, we're lucky to have some incredible judges. Mike is the one that spearheads this every year, but there is no limit. So, you have 5,000 submissions. That could be all different species. And I'll never forget the gentleman from Fish Dock. He said, "Oh, we could never do that." So isn't it interesting that you bring us this news, and they are now starting to see the importance of having a multi-species platform-based tournament? And they are doing their best to try and duplicate what was done by the CFN fish off. So kudos to you, Mike, and all the judges. You know what?
Yeah. Imitation is the most sincere form of flattery, right? 100%. So you guys are raising the bar, and they're catching up. They're trying to catch up, but that's okay, because you know what? The more of this, it's like going out on a Saturday night. You don't go to a place where there's just one bar. You go to a place where there's lots of different clubs going on, and because that's interesting, right? That's interesting, and then you can have more fun. So I think the more the merrier on something like this, as long as they're following the rules and doing it right. And then, it's like it'll just get more interesting. People get more involved with this sort of thing.
100%. All right, we got time for one more.
Okay. Oh yeah. So 50 First Nations leaders from 50 First Nations on the west coast of British Columbia came to Ottawa to thank the Minister of Department of Fisheries and Oceans for removing the open pen fish farms from the waters along BC's west coast. Now, not all of them, but all the ones up on the west side of Vancouver Island, up that way. And so, that's pretty cool, because these 50 leaders of these First Nation communities, 50 First Nation communities, there's other First Nation communities that are supporting these aquaculture, open pen fish farms. So for them to come and say to the minister, look, we appreciate what you did for the salmon and what you did for the future wild salmon. Thank you for doing that, because it's important to us. It's important to the fish. It's important to the ecosystem. And you know what? It's important to anglers too, right? So this is pretty cool.
That is cool. You know what? I have to say, this has been the best Lawrence Gunther segment when it comes to positivity. I feel so much better hearing all the great news that you shared with us so far, dude. This sometimes we leave angry, sometimes we leave a little sad. But today I can say on behalf of everybody that's listened to you, you know what? That's awesome. That's some great stuff. Great things that are happening behind the scenes, and we're educating the masses along the way. Can't thank you enough, dude. Now,
thank you for giving me the time, man. Oh, well, yeah, that's the big story.
Big story, of course. I don't know if everybody saw this, but let me share the pic, because it is quite a pic. We shared it on our CFN platform today as a Monster Monday CFN feature, and I don't know necessarily how to pronounce correctly the man's last name, but Sam Bucha.
It's a woman.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh my good Lord.
Because otherwise Brad Molloy would be gay. So but he's married to her, or they're partners anyways. And it is a woman. Yeah. Nothing against gay people at all. I'm just saying, let's get the record straight right here. Sam,
my sincerest apologies. Yeah. I couldn't necessarily tell from the pic, but now that you mentioned that, okay. Insert here, as they say with the foot. Anyway, let's get on about the fish. Let's talk more about the fish.
47 inches long.
47 3/4 inches long. It has a 31-inch girth.
Ooh.
It is the unofficial ice fishing lake trout record for Ontario, estimated at 57 plus pounds.
Yeah.
And this is, of course, after their 50-pound scale maxed out. So to say they actually know how much it weighs, they don't. Believe it or not, these fish roam our lakes, as they mentioned, and what an absolute monster for Ontario. Congrats to Sam, and I'll tell you, if it is a record fish, it is something to write home about. But I'm interested to know what folks think its age is. What would a fish that big in Northern Ontario end up being when it comes to age? How old would that be?
And here's something else. The actual record lake trout caught in Ontario is 63 pounds. So it's about 4 pounds more than this one, but its length is a little shorter. Its girth is a little thicker. And that was caught in 1952. So to catch something through the ice, to get this fish through the ice, they had to actually take the auger and drill another hole next to the hole they were fishing in to widen the hole to fit this fish through. The fish died. Fish died. Yeah. But it is what it is, right? Not all of them survive, and this one didn't. So let's not gang up on Sam and her partner there. It wasn't their intention to kill the fish. They wanted to get the fish above the ice so they could take a picture of it and measure it, and like we all want to do. And they tried their best.
Well, I will say this in all fairness to them, and of course, at the end of the day, I totally understand why they would keep a fish like this. Mm-hmm. In a lot of cases, there's an argument that would be had that it's sterile. It's not reproducing anymore at
that size and age. Yeah,
and I think Jay Barnucz will add some information too about another fish that was equally as big, in fact, twice the size of this one.
Twice the size.
And it was found to be not only sterile, but it didn't even have any reproductive organs.
No sex organs. So just the only thing it wanted to do was eat, It's kind of like me now that I'm getting older.
Yeah. Well, you know what, dude? You're not the only one. But as I said, every Monday you come here, you just pelt us with a plethora of information, dude. And we can't thank you enough for
my pleasure.
Again, we look forward to seeing you every Monday, and we look forward to seeing what you're up to next, because you are one busy body.
Sounds good, buddy. Thank you for having me on your show. And thanks everyone for listening and your great questions. And you want to get the news, bluefishcanada.ca. You want to listen to the podcast, just go to any of those podcast providers, say the Bluefish Radio Show, and it will pop up and play the latest episode. Or, search for it or go to the Bluefish Radio, bluefishradio.com, and they're all there. Almost 400 episodes there, my friend.
Wow.
Yeah, 400. I think we're coming up to our 10-year anniversary. I don't do numbers. I try not to do numbers. Like how many years, how many, but I put a new one on the end of the list. I go, yeah, there's another number just to organize them. And I noticed I was reading somewhere, 2013, we started the podcast.
Incredible, dude. Well, keep up the great work, bud. We appreciate what you do. Speaking of appreciating, we appreciate Jay Barnucz, who will be coming up right after a word from his sponsor.
Want to know the difference between power bait and other soft plastics? Ask the fish. Berkeley scientists have thousands of flavors tested on thousands of fish. Natural, man-made. Every bait that's ever hit the water. No matter the shape, size, or color, power bait is the only one that is scientifically proven. Fish bite and will not let go.
Jay Barnucz in the house. Oh, and
Scotty.
Steph. Hi, Steph. How you doing?
Hi.
Right
I'm
on.
doing good.
So I have, I'm not flying solo tonight anymore. So I actually have two co-hosts, and Stephanie has to ask you a question, Scotty, before she's not going to be here for long. So go ahead, you can ask him.
So
I hope I can answer it.
I have a gift for you, and I am wondering if you're going to be at the Toronto Sportsman Show on Thursday.
I will now. I'll go Thursday. You know what, Steph? I will make a point of being there on Thursday.
All right. Well, I have a seminar Thursday around 5, so we were going to be there like in the afternoon for 3-4 hours. So you can show Scotty if you want.
I made a CFN bracelet.
Holy smokes! You're awesome.
So Stephanie started a small business, actually, Scotty, making bracelets. And my mom just got back from Guatemala, where Stephanie made 50 bracelets to give out to kids in Guatemala at the health clinics that my mother was helping at. So kudos, Stephanie. Good job.
Yeah, baby.
So while she was making bracelets, she goes, I want to make a CFN bracelet. So there you go. You get the first official CFN bracelet. And we'll connect this week at the Sportsman Show for sure, but she'll be there Thursday.
Steph, I will make a point of making sure I meet you there. I'll have trumpets. Right. I'll have horses that will gallop you up to the front door. No, absolutely, Steph. That's awesome. Thanks so much for doing that. It means the world.
All right. Thanks, kiddo. We'll see you.
Right on.
Take
care, Steph.
Co-host number 2.
Yeah, you've been busy. Trevor's in the house. Nice to see you, Trevor. And as I said, dude, you got to stop growing, man. Like, what are you?
I know, it's crazy.
You make us short, fat guys look even shorter and fatter. Thanks for that. But the two of you were busy this past weekend, out walleye fishing around the creeks.
Yeah.
Who's your friend again, Trevor? I forget his name.
So I met, so that's Owen Brock. We've been friends since the 4th grade, and all we've done since then is fishing. And he actually got me into kayak fishing, and we've been fishing together ever since. And we've been trying to get him out on the river forever. And what was it, last Saturday?
Saturday.
Saturday, we got the chance to take him, and we put the meat down on him.
Now, Owen was the one that I met at the Spring Fishing and Boat Show, right?
Yes.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. I just could not remember his name.
Yeah.
Felt horrible, but
so there's Owen's. I'll do a short story. So Owen Brock, he played rep ball with Trevor. I was their coach for a couple of years. But Owen, I actually went to high school with Owen's dad and brother. Like we were like old high school friends, and then we didn't see each other for like 20 years. I moved away, went to school up north. And then literally we went to baseball tryouts one day, and there was Craig Brock. I'm like, hey, how's it going? And then I finally figured out that this kid at school that Trevor hung out with that loved fishing, his name was Owen. He was Owen Brock, who I have known the Brock family my entire life. So it's kind of funny. And Owen's dad doesn't fish. Well, like he drags a line in the water when he goes kayak fishing, but he loves kayaking. He's an outdoors fanatic, does not really fish. Owen is probably the most, no offense to Trevor, probably the most naturally gifted angler that we know for his age locally. So great,
Well,
and a great kid.
He looks like he's having a horrible time. There.
Oh, yeah.
Absolute. Like I don't know how he wants to do this again.
Yeah. It was fun.
And the fact that he's landing your fish for you, like, but this is, he is that's awesome, man. That is awesome.
And it's a really cool experience, right? You know, recently with this winter's been so funky, not cold enough, and ice storms and snowstorms, and what's cool in Southern Ontario is we have these winter walleye seasons, right? Where you can fish for walleye till middle of March, 1st of March, whatever the district or zone you're in. And that was the Thames River. But all the river systems around here get runs of walleye, the Grand, the Thames, the Sydenham, they all get runs of walleye. And, you know, the Thames is really cool because there's not a lot of dams on the Thames River. So those fish get free range of that river system, Scotty. And there's a reasonably healthy walleye population there and has been for a number of years. And so, and it's one of those places that as we go through climate change, honestly, and we get these warmer winters, we can get out and chase walleye in February and March down here when everyone else is ice fishing up north. Like I was texting a buddy today, get this, I'm texting a buddy today. I'm on the river catching walleye. He's on Lake Nipigon. He drove from North Bay to Nipigon to go catch lake trout. And he's asking me about the walleye fishing, and I'm asking him about the lake trout fishing on Lake Nipigon today. What a great province we live in, right? Isn't that
kidding? How much ice was he drilling through?
Oh, he was over 3 feet of ice where he was. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Smokes. Incredible. So now, obviously, Mike is saying that Thames River has had a lot bigger size walleye this year. Did you think the same when you guys were out there?
Yeah, to be honest, a lot of the ones we caught were sort of 18 to 21 inches in length. But half of the ones we caught were bigger than that. Owen got one around 4 pounds. I got one around 6. And then the one I got today was probably pushing 8 pounds. The average size this year, and this is not just me, I'm no expert on the Thames River. I have a lot of friends who live near London who are Thames River experts, and talking with them, the average size this year has been incredible. But the weather hasn't been that great, so it's not like usually the best time to fish for them is when it's kind of sunny and warm out. You know, you get those like sort of early spring days. We really haven't had that, Scotty. Like we've had these +3 days. It'll be a little sunny, but the wind's cold. Then at night it goes down to -5, -3, and even today it was, you know, we were fishing in the snow. It was +1. So those fish are there, but they're not really active. And also too, I think on the weekend there was a lot of people out fishing, which is great to see. Love seeing everyone out fishing. But I think we kind of our spots kind of got burned all the weekend as all the people came through there. So that's just how it goes. That's what happens this time. It's like steelheading on the Eastern trips, right? Lots of people out. Fantastic 100%. To see.
So Trevor, now we have to ask the obvious question: what brought in all of these eyes? What was your go-to bait on the weekend?
All right, what do we got here?
Well, you were using that one.
So
mostly
when we got to our first spot, it took a couple casts to figure them out, but me and Owen were using, this is the Berkeley Ripple Shad on a Chartreuse head, and we dipped the tail in a little bit of that glow.
The dip and glow.
That dip and glow.
Yeah.
And it's got a little bit of garlic scent too. And that killed him in the first 30 minutes. We caught like 5 fish. And Owen caught 3 on back-to-back casts on this bait.
So I have to tell the story. So I see where they're going to fish. And it's kind of it's not a big spot. It's a small spot. There's barely there's room for 3 of us, but not many more to stand there. So I said, I let them go down, and I went up around the bend, kind of to check out who else was fishing around the bend. And no one was there, but I took a few casts, and I kind of walked back around the corner. I look down river, and all I see is the 2 of them high-fiving each other. I'm like, oh boy, what am I missing? And then I see a walleye, about an 18-inch walleye, being held up over someone's head, like at me, going, look what you're missing out on over here. So needless to say, I went, and what was it, 3 fish and 3 casts, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got onto a spot. Now the spot we had was interesting. It was really fast current where we were. And you had to fish pockets. Like they were not in the fast water. A lot of people have been messaging me, see the video, they're like, wow, those fish are in that fast water. They're not in that fast water. They're sitting in pockets around that fast water. So we were taking, I talked about these baits on the show a couple weeks ago. So these bonefish from Berkeley, but these baits here, like what's neat about these swim baits is you would cast them out, Scotty, and then you have to let it sink to the bottom, and then you would just retrieve it, but not on a steady retrieve. We would retrieve it so that it would keep in contact with the bottom the whole time. The bottom there is mostly cobble and gravel, so you just feel it ticking the bottom. We didn't have a lot of snags. And then if you lose contact with the bottom, just stop retrieving and then let it hit bottom again. Then after a while, you bring it forward, keep coming across. Now you're in that fast water and it gets washed away.
Yeah.
So you just reel it in and make the cast back in. And so what we found was in the deep, little bit deeper areas, the larger ripple shads worked the best. And actually, what was the other one here? Oh yeah. And then like these power swimmers, these boot tail swimmers, right? We're all used to seeing these swim baits. So these ones in the faster water, actually, they bottom bounced nicer. Does that make sense, Scotty? So they maintain bottom contact. And the boot tails, both of them, just, you don't have to move them and those tails will wag. Now, when we got in real slow water, these ones were shining, these bonefish, because they're not as buoyant, and so they just sink right to the bottom. And so there was, honestly, Scotty, there was areas where I was catching walleye that was maybe knee deep. You just can't see the bottom. And I think they were out like sunning themselves in these areas. So you would just make that cast and you would slowly retrieve it. And sometimes even when the jig head would hit a rock, it would like, you think it's a fish, you're not sure. And then you would just, and you had to keep Jim talked about this. Always know what's going on with your rod tip. So rod tip is up and I'm using white braid, not green braid, but white braid. So the crystal color from Berkeley. And I'm watching my line the whole time. And I'm watching how my line's behaving and where my line is. And I'm like following it as I'm turning the handle, I'm like following my line down the river. And if I got to feel that bottom, if you don't feel bottom, you did not get bit. That was the rule. So it took us a while to figure it out. But what was nice is just by varying by your jig head size. So we're going to go up from 3/8 down to 1/4, and you could fish different depths, and we would just retie as we went. And yeah, that was it. We had 2 good days of fishing on the Thames. Fantastic.
We had a legacy chat last night, and Mark and Terry were talking about fishing the St. Lawrence out Cornwall way. Yeah, and I think one of the hardest things for a traditional angler to get used to is fishing in current, because you think you need to have that bottom contact at all times. So you get a half decent flow, and you're not feeling that contact right away. You go up to a heavier jig. There's no wrong. That's not a wrong thing to do, but as I can tell, you have like those are 3/8, maybe 5/8 ounce jig heads, right? Those heads.
Yeah, these are 3/8 mostly in 1/4. Yeah.
So getting to that stage where you can feel bottom at 3/8, it takes time, and you have to have the patience for it. And as I said, the thing I've noticed too, fishing walleye and current, you're gonna miss a lot of fish, not lose fish. You're gonna miss them because, like you said, if you don't feel the bottom contact, you're not presenting it properly. Yeah. But there's also that possibility that it's already caught up to the bait and it's lifted it off the bottom, and you've just missed setting the hook. Because
that's a great point, Scotty. Like you want to feel your bait the whole time. You don't want to lose contact with it. So you want to watch. I'm watching the line. I make sure there's no belly in that line, right? Because we got wind to deal with too. But if I go to a heavier jig head, like a 1/2 ounce or a 5/8, it's too erratic. Like you're lifting it up and it's just nosediving down. You want this bait like just kind of ticking along the bottom. And so but sometimes the 1/4 ounce one, I couldn't maintain that bottom contact. I'd go to the 3/8, and then there was times though where And I think as the day went on, the current would change a little bit in some of these spots. And then the 3/8 was too heavy. Like it was instead of tapping the bottom, it was like bang, bang, bang. So then I'd go back, I'd switch back to a quarter. Or picture this, you're in a huge pool. Like there's a huge pool and eddies. And if I want to kind of pick it apart, and you're on shore, I'm not in a boat. I'm on shore because you got to hike quite a ways to these places. So Scotty, if I want to fish, let's say there's 3 eddies in front of you. Each eddy has a different depth and a different velocity. And so I have to use a different jig head for each one. And at the same time, dude, as the day would go on, you know this as well as anyone, you got to change your colors. Like this ripple shad with that, and I'll put my hand there to see it better, with that chartreuse tail, it was great. Honestly, that was lights out the best one to start. And then the boot tails kind of picked up, and then these bonefish kicked in, right? And you can ask him. I kept switching baits because they were throwing. Owen had a boot tail. So if for those on the show, that's a boot tail. Yeah. What I call a boot tail swim bait. Okay, it has a little more wag than that ripple shad.
Yeah.
But I let the boys fish, and they were catching fish. I kept switching it up, and I got into a couple better fish than they did. And I wonder if it's because I kept switching. Because the thing is, there was a point where we were catching lots, right?
Yeah.
But there was also a lot of lulls.
Yeah.
So when it was lulling, I'm like, well, I'm not going to throw the same thing they are. So I'd go over to the box and I just keep all my swim baits in I know a lot of guys like keeping them in the pack, but just for convenience, we're hiking the river. I don't have a lot of room in the pack, so I just got them all in a container. And I just kept switching baits, and that's what worked, man. And then sun was key on Saturday.
These are the questions that I wanted to ask you. Did anybody take the water temperature?
No,
it was cold.
Didn't take a water temperature, but I'll tell you this, Scotty, the fish were not ripe yet. There was one ripe male.
One was today.
2, right. So one ripe male Saturday, one ripe male today. But all the other fish we caught were not ripe, male or female. So they're just staging up right now. So
see, and that's what the reason I was asking that is typically the females always come in first. But when I saw the number of males that you caught, would suggest to me that our water's starting to warm up quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I think we caught 2, maybe 3 females.
Yeah, we figured we probably caught 3 females. Yeah, mostly males.
That one definitely, you could tell she was a female. She's got lots of eggs in her. It was great seeing you release that, Jay.
Yeah.
Again, just a great message to send to folks.
We kept 2 fish. Actually, we weren't going to keep any, Scotty, and then Trevor deep hooked one. It choked the swim bait. I couldn't believe it, and it was bleeding in the gill like a little bit. And I'm like, we shouldn't release this fish, Trevor. So we kept that one.
Yeah.
And then I kept it. Then at that point, I kept a second one because I'm like, well, we'll have 2 fish to eat. That's a meal, right? So, yeah, that's what we did.
But the other question too was, I saw you had intermittent sun. Did you find a certain color worked when the sun was out, and then when the sun disappeared?
I think the ripple shad with the sun was best.
Yeah. That's when we got there around midday was when the sun was at its peak. And that's what we were hitting them on pretty good.
Yeah.
And then once that sun kind of went away, especially today where we didn't have any sun, the bonefish and the paddle tail had a lot.
But the fish were way less active today, but they were still there. So Scotty, because you can feel them, like, I hate to say this, but you snag a few doing this too. Like they're stacked up in those holes, right? So you're slowly working this swim bait. And you'll feel a fish and you set it. Oh, missed it. Then you bring it in and there's a single walleye scale on the swim bait hook. Like literally, it's like that was a big one. That was a big one. You can see the size of the scale, right? Wow. So, but today they weren't actively feeding. It was snow flurries today, and now I know that I've had good days down there when you get those low pressure systems, but I think it's just a little too cold still. Like we've had these, it's -4 at night. The last few days were barely above 0, right? So, there's tons of snow on the bank where we're fishing. Like it's cold. It's cold still. So,
and the thing that folks need to know is these aren't resident fish, right? These are fish that are coming in from the big lake. And as I said, this time of year, it's not unheard of, but it's just given the winter we've had, to see the males in there at this time already, I'm a little surprised at that. That I think that might, it's not early in the grand scheme of things, but it's early for this year.
Yeah, I know. I agree, and I think it just shows you the kind of winter we've had down here, right?
100%.
It's spring isn't here yet. Winter's still hanging on. Even the long range forecast into the next couple of weeks, like we're talking highs of 5, lows of -1. Like it's going to be nicer weather, but it's not going to be. There's no double digits.
No.
To the end of March, and usually we get a few double-digit days this time of year. It's not happening yet. So
I'll tell you, I don't know how many shadows that rodent saw when it comes to winter, but it's not. The 6 weeks is already up. So I have a feeling that rodent saw 3 or 4 of its shadows. But great point that Mike brings up. Remember, walleye closing the Thames on the 15th. I think that's it. So if you want to get down there,
that's a confusing reg too. I want to comment on that because it closes the 15th, like the midnight of the 15th. So the 16th is the first day of close. Like but I've misread that before. Not that I've been poaching out there, but I've always, for years, I thought it was you could fish till midnight on the 14th. So on the morning of the 15th, you're done. No, it closes the 15th. So you have until the end of the day on the 15th. And I actually asked the CO a few years ago that, because I've only been doing this for a few years, actually, this Thames River. I did it when I was really young, and I've started going back the last few years. And I can't believe, like, it's funny how that regulation, and how many walleye are being caught. It makes me think, Scotty, about, if we're going through climate change and general warming of winters, should we be adjusting these regulations to protect these fish? What do you think?
Well, you and I have talked about this before, that we should have a floating date. It shouldn't be a solid date. It should be, there should be science involved. And as I said, a perfect situation as we just discussed. If you've got females and males in there, and let's say they're spawning, the last thing we want to do is to be in there fishing for them. I'm amazed at the Detroit River that, they have it open, but again, it's a true testament to the type of fishery that Lake Erie has and the amount of fish that swim up the Detroit River. But I agree, Jay. I think it should be a fluctuating date. It shouldn't be a hard date. It's not to say that our M&R or our COs get it wrong. It's just sometimes we have these anomalies, these weather anomalies where the water isn't warming up near as fast. And if it does, God forbid, and we're out there, targeting spawning fish, that's not good either. So I'm with you 100% on that.
Yeah, like we use a term at work called growing degree days. If you're in agriculture, you heard about this too. We use it with fish, and so you can calculate the growing degree days that you have over a period of time. And one of my thoughts was you would calculate the growing degree days starting like January 1st, and if you had a real time water chemistry unit in the river, and these exist, that these are happening now, like it'll record water temperature continuously and send it by cell signal to your office.
That's awesome.
And so it should be able to calculate growing degree days on the fly with that data, and then the local managers could be like, yep, we've hit that threshold, now we're going to close it, right? Or let's say within a week we say, next weekend we're closing it down, right? So it's possible.
100%. So speaking of growth rates, I know we showed this, and I can't think of a better person to give us their take on this fish. And again, forgive me, Sam. I got the gender wrong. I apologize profusely. But needless to say, regardless of that, Sam, you caught an incredible fish. As I said, it's an unofficial Ontario ice fishing lake trout record. I'm hoping it will become official for her. But in the meantime, Jay, how could we determine how old that fish is? And what's your guess when it comes to that fish and its age?
So age in fish is so highly variable. I wouldn't want to guess. But it's funny you bring this up, because I actually I was having an offline chat with our buddy George Morgan from Lake Nipissing the other day, and I'll bring this up on a future show, probably next week or the week after. They did an autopsy on the record smallmouth from Erie, I have a great YouTube video on it. And actually, George and I were discussing about the size of that fish. Remember how big it was? Like, it wasn't a huge fish, but it was big, obviously, right? There's George on there now. So I was actually going to reach out to George and be like, do you happen to have a lake trout length at length weight graph so that smallmouth, although it was big, still fell within the norm? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So we could, because we know the specs of that laker, is it within the normal, range of a lake trout? It just is bigger. So instead of being on the graph over here, it's somewhere over here, right? So let me think about that one. I need a little bit of time to research that. I want to see if it falls within the norm. I'd have to find. Now, I did find some length weight plots for lake trout, but at 57 inches, the metric conversion of that is almost 1,500 millimeters, so 1.5 meters.
Wow. And
the charts that I see top out at about 1,000, 1,000 millimeters, 1,200 millimeters. So it's definitely over here. Where's my screen? Over here.
Yeah.
Not over here.
Typically, Jay, though, when it comes to char, I know obviously it has a lot to do with water temperature and location, but typically, how much growth does a lake trout do in a year?
Quite a bit. Like, fish just don't stop eating, right? Like, they're just continually growing. Like, fish, you'll hear people talk about how fish are, they've hit the end of their life cycle and they slow down. They don't produce as many eggs. That's not really true. Fish basically are at their peak performance right till the end. And so with lake trout, they're, a fish like that, it has the right diet in the right lake, and that's the thing about that fish. It has to be the perfect environment to grow a fish that size. There's lake trout lakes. And if anyone's ever been to Algonquin Park, there's some old Algonquin publications. I remember thinking about this in high school when I went there once. And there's lake trout lakes in Algonquin that have lake trout that primarily feed on invertebrates.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you have like those Opiongo lake trout. You can have fish of the same age in both those lakes, and one could be 10 times the size of the other one. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that particular lake trout is just at the peak of being a lake trout in Ontario. There's probably that lake probably is full of giant ciscos that are full of calories. Like Gord Pizer did a great article this week. If you guys love reading Gord stuff, he did an article this week talking about ciscos and the value of ciscos, and ciscos produce lake trout like that. He referred to ciscos as, I believe in the article, he referred them as steak versus some lakes where walleye and lake trout have switched to yellow perch, which is like eating hamburgers. You're still going to get big, but it's not the quality. So like I was laughing about perch burger. I like perch burgers. They're pretty good.
Yeah.
But, I guess I'm not exactly a prime specimen. I should be eating the steak, not the perch burgers. But anyways, I believe that lake trout just is, I don't want to say an anomaly, but definitely in the max, right up here, the max size of lake trout.
100%. I mean, let's face it, our cold water fisheries up north produce some really big lake trout, but it's not often you get to see something that large out of the Red Lake area. So it is a freak of nature. George brings up a great point when it comes to what we discussed a little earlier.
Yes.
What was interesting, though, and I'll go back to last spring on the Red River in Manitoba, where they actually asked the anglers. One, they wanted them to stay off the rivers because they were flooding and it was unsafe to be on it, but also because the walleye were spawning. It was a very late start to the year for them out there last year. And I thought it was absolutely awesome to see the buy-in from the anglers because, as George mentioned here, it takes federal approval to do something like that. But then you also need the anglers to buy in and sort of police it themselves. And I'll tell you, hats off to all of our Manitoba anglers because they did a fantastic job, not only adhering to the new rules, but also policing it. So we can do it. We can do it. Now,
George says George is going to send me the Ontario grease pig growth curve. So just so everyone knows, George is not a fan of things with adipose fins. He's not very tolerant of adipose fins, and he has a lot of really fun names for fish with adipose fins. Just so everyone understands, George is a bass head walleye guy. Basically everything without an adipose fin. But
well, I'm glad you cleared that up, Jay, because I thought he was actually talking about me. So that's good. I'm glad.
He's like, yeah, no. George and I are not going to some county fair chasing greased pigs around. He's actually referring to lake trout. We are not studying the growth of little piglets as they're greased. We're not studying that.
That's hilarious. So I got to ask you, Trevor, now that walleye are soon to close, steelhead, I'm hoping are going to be your next target. But I also love to see you this time of year targeting catfish and suckers.
So that's next on our list, but this damn weather needs to change. I have been itching to get out of my room for so long, and we're gonna hopefully try like getting into April for our suckers. And my mom wants to try to break a world record this year, so we're gonna go probably hit the Thames again for some of those big suckers.
Yeah, poor Trevor. So we're blessed having some great local fisheries right where we live, like within walking distance, but those fisheries are all closed until trout opener. So Trevor with no license, he's been trapped at home, nowhere to go. So if dad mom are at work, he can go places. He can go down to the corner store, he can go down to the pizza, but he can't go fishing in town. So he's 1 month, just a little month and almost 6 weeks, not even 5 weeks from trout opener. So the countdown is on. But yeah, we got plans. Basically, we're going to chase whatever we can over the next few weeks. There is a Trevor gets sponsored by Mega Bass or Death. There you go. Yeah, that's what Trevor needs. More encouragement from anglers.
That's
so,
awesome.
Actually, I will make an announcement tonight. This is actually breaking news at our house, and I'll share this with you, Scotty, and the rest.
Oh yeah.
So everyone knows Trevor's a diehard kayak angler, and we reached out to John Dean from the Ontario Kayak Bassmasters because Trevor's only 15, he's not 16, but they aren't sure where the rules are around age majority, things like that. So we've received word today from Bass through John that Trevor will be allowed to fish, of course, with Dad there, the Ontario Kayak Bassmasters tournament series this year. And the championship is on Stony Lake, so him and Owen want to fish it. So our entire summer just got flipped upside down as of about 4:00 today. So shout out to John Dean for looking out for him and asking the right questions at Bass. And yeah, so that's what we'll be doing this summer. Be fishing kayak bass tournaments.
Wow. And how many tournaments are there?
There's 4 in the series. Yeah. So there's I don't want to get it right. It's Dalrymple, Simcoe, Cooch, Sparrow, and Stony, I think, this year.
Yeah.
So he gets to fish. So he's pretty excited. So now we got to figure out what we're gonna do for the summer.
Dad get a cut if Trevor wins?
His cuts down south. That's his.
Well, so if you place in the top 5 or 6, and depends on the participation amount. But if you place in the top 5 or 6 of the championship, which is a tough thing to do, you get to go fish at the kayak national championship next year. So this year they're having that event the week of the classic on the Wednesday, Thursday on Lake Chickamauga, just down the road from Knoxville. So there'll be 5 or 6 Ontario anglers that are heading down to Tennessee probably this weekend to fish all next week in that championship. So the way this works is in the Ontario Kayak Bassmasters Championship, 2 days, usually around 100 anglers compete, and the top 5, I think, get to go to the U.S. the following March. So, and he will be 16 by then. So this was the conflict, is that he has to be 16 to fish that event if he qualifies for it. So anyways, long story short,
some great news in the Barnucz home. That's fantastic to hear. And we wish you all the best, Trevor.
Yep. So now we're in a new realm now, Scotty. It's kayak fishing for us now. That's it.
It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing.
No, it's not. It's
Well,
all
listen,
good.
you two, thanks so much for joining us as you do every Monday. Keep up the great work, Trevor. As I said, I love all your posts. But that video you put together was awesome. And as I said, when some of us have to go to work or we don't get the luxury of having the ability to take time off, we live check to check. I mean, as I said, I'm describing all of our community. We live vicariously through folks like you, and we thank you because it's awesome to see you out having fun fishing.
And we thank you guys also for the encouragement.
Yeah.
To be honest, like we get lots of messages and questions about what we're doing, where we're up to. Like I'm not gonna send you a GPS pin of where we are and what we're doing like that detail, but happy to tell you we're an open book when it comes to this kind of stuff. So and I love seeing Trevor answer the questions. You know, it's not just dad. You know, he's a very good knowledgeable angler. And I love seeing it. So
a lot of love in the air. A lot of love it. All right, you two, listen, have yourselves a great week. We look forward to seeing your next adventure. And again, stay safe and good luck.
And we'll see you soon. And this weekend, Toronto Sportsman Show, I'm there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm doing seminars not with Big Jim, but on the same stage on kayak fishing, just carrying on from the Hamilton show. So if you're down at the Sportsman Show this weekend, come check out my kayak seminar and we can talk fishing.
You got it. We'll see you there.
All right.
Take care,
guys. We'll see
You guys.
All the best. So there it is. Another show in the books. I can't thank Jim, Lawrence, and Jay, and of course, Trevor and Stephanie enough for joining us tonight, as well as you. You guys come by here all the time. So I want you to remember, as I mentioned at the top, we have the Steve McKinnon Challenge. If you guys are interested in helping Steve, who's come down on some health issues, CFN is going to match every dollar that you donate up to $250. So hopefully we can hand over $500 to the guy, and that'll take care of a good chunk of his bills. So a big shout out to Walter for setting that up. And Steve, hopefully you get well, my friend. But at the end of the day, we want you to focus on your rehab. So let's help you as best we can with some of your bills and take care of that. Also, of course, if going forward, we are going to be doing a CFN Live giveaway. We will be putting a post at the top of the CFN Fishing Network Facebook page. We want you to register. All you have to do is type your name, I'm in, or whatever. It doesn't matter at the end of the day, just to know that you are going to be on the wheel. We're going to spin it. Pal Castings has been very generous to donate. And as I said, I think this is it's going to be awesome to be able to give back to our community, which we love doing. Speaking of our community and giving back, again, I got to play this video on the way out. This was all of the family entries, or at least a small snippet of some of the family entries. When you take kids out, we'd love to see it, and we love to promote it and pump your tires. You guys have yourselves a great week. Stay safe, get out fishing, enjoy the warm weather when it comes. But in the meantime, make sure you're getting ready. And again, thanks so much for being a CFNer. It means the world to all of us. All right, you CFNers, take it away.
CFN, it's a family thing.
Hey, final day of the CFN Winter Fish Fest. I got my grandson Ben here with me, and I just caught a little walleye here to put on the board. So last day I got my CFN jersey, got Ben with me. So what do you got to say, Ben?
CFN, it's a family thing.
Hopefully there'll be more. That's just the alarm. Go get him. Pull him up. Go over. Keep pulling. Go over the hole, Ben. Get close to the hole. Is he still on? You got him? Oh, pull him up. Oh, way to go, Ben.
It's a big perch.
That's a nice one.
CFN is a family thing.
CFN is a family thing. CFN.
It's a family thing.
It's a family thing.
Now release it.
Richard, CFN, it's a family thing. McKenna Richard, CFN, it's a family thing. My personal best.
Move your other hand so they can see how big it is.
CFN is a family thing with a nice 21-inch walleye. Going back for another angler.